Da, 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 da. Okay, all of those are up. We got to get our friends over on Facebook joining us as well. We'll hit that. Once that's good to go, then it will be officially Broncos for breakfast. And there we go. The coffee pots are hopefully empty by now. Everybody's got their mugs full. Welcome in. Happy Tuesday. Hopefully everybody had a safe and reflective Memorial Day weekend. Scott, how are you doing? Congratulations. We were just talking. I know that you are a big Chelsea FC supporter. So, man, that's a congrats, man. That's big. I like them too, but I'm much more of a fair weather fan. You follow them. You are live and breathe Chelsea. Oh, you're muted, Scott.
Yep, I'm still muted. That's where I poured my fandom, as football became a job and a career. International football has become my fandom. But I tell you, I was telling you off before we got started a little bit. It's, being a lifelong Atlanta sports fan, it's hard to enjoy the moment. It's hard to, you're just sitting there waiting to get, Charlie Brown, Lucy, the football to be pulled out from under you, and you're going to fall flat on your back. So it's more like it's apprehension instead of joy when something like that's going on. So it's like, please don't mess up. You're ahead. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. And then you're like, and then it's like the final whistle. You're like, oh, thank God.
It happened. Just relief. God, I almost felt that way a little bit in 2015 after the Broncos drubbing that was the 2013 Super Bowl against the Seahawks. So I definitely feel that, not as much though as an Atlanta fan. I can't imagine that. So well, yeah, I mean the Braves won a World Series back.
Yeah, that was 26 years ago. So
God, was it really?
It's been a while. They won their first. The Braves won their first playoff series in 15 years last year.
Oh man,
so wow. It's but like I said, with baseball, it doesn't bother me as much because I'd rather win 100 games and go out in the playoffs than win 80 in a World Series once every 10 years and be bad the rest of the time. So it's basically I'd rather be the Braves than the Marlins, even though the Marlins have 2 championships.
Well, there you go, guys.
Anyway, good morning, everyone. So how is everyone doing? I hope everybody had a good, a really good Memorial Day weekend, or wherever, we've got some overseas people, Bankers Holiday weekend. So it's good to be back. It's good to be back for sure. June 1st. We've been waiting on this, haven't we?
Yeah, summer is pretty much here. The Aaron Rodgers stuff is going to get hopefully some clarity. I have a feeling it's going to drag out. So everyone buckle up. Don't unfasten your seatbelts just yet. But this is Broncos for Breakfast. We're live every Tuesday and Thursday morning at 8 o'clock Mountain Time. You guys can follow our main podcast account at Huddle Up Pod on Twitter. Also follow the main account on Twitter at Mile High Huddle. Guys, also, if you're joining us today, if you're on Facebook, please go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. That can help us a heck of a lot. If you're joining us on YouTube today, please subscribe, like, and share. Also, if you're joining us on Facebook, click those thumbs up, the laugh reacts, heart reacts, care emojis, whatever floats your boat. Also, guys, if you are on YouTube today, really easy. If you're enjoying this product as well, make sure you go to Scott's channel at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. I'm dropping his sub link in the chat as well, so you guys can just click on that. It'll be easy peasy, and you can check Scott's channel out. He's doing a bunch of different stuff right now. Julio Jones information, best ever, off-season content, and we're starting to get the ramp-up process for the season. I know we're still a few months out, but I mean 100 days away, I think, from week 1 of the NFL. I believe that's what John said, so giddy up. Also, you guys can find us both on Twitter, myself at Nick Kendell MHH, and Scott at Scout Kennedy. All right, folks. Well, we want to say hello to some people in the comments first before we get too far down the rabbit hole, which will be training camp battles. We got Buwana in the house today. I'm not running the 1s and 2s, but that's okay. He's joining us in the chat. Good morning, Broncos World. Good, and then Charlie saying Broncos World returns your greetings. Dez is in here giving the thumbs up. How you doing, Dez? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. We got Sean saying, breaking news, Aaron Rodgers has sneezed. This story is developing. Well, in today's world, that sneeze might be noteworthy, so you better look out there. Dave Glassman coming in here saying, good morning, Broncos country. Happy June 1st. Heck yes. We got Sean Richelli coming in here. Ownership is Cincinnati is an issue. Denver needs to address the same problem before it gets out of hand. That's probably the one of the bigger things in here that we're not talking about right now is the ownership situation, but it does seem like it's going to head to a resolution in the next year and a half. Miguel is in the house as well. Good morning from New Mexico. Hope you all had a good weekend. Jason's in the house as well. Good to see you. EJ's in the house. Oh, Pobby's in the house. Good morning, Pobby. How you doing? Summit says hello. Stephen Barr is in the house too. Good afternoon, Broncos country from Scotland. wow, way across the yard. And EJ also, good morning, Nick and Scott, and Broncos country. So, Scott, let's get into it. Obviously, the Broncos have one of the better, I mean, maybe not obviously, but to me, they have one of the better rosters that they've had in probably since 2016, overall, top to bottom. And training camp battles don't always mean, good players. Sometimes it's like you don't have a person there and may the best guy win, but you're not really satisfied with the option. And that's true with probably some of these position battles we're going to talk about. But this Broncos roster, top to bottom, is probably as good as it's been since the year that they almost made the playoffs in 2016. And also shout out real quick, Olio sending the super sticker. I don't have the ability to post that super sticker, Olio, over on YouTube. But if you let us know in the comments what it is, I'll shout it out. But either way, I see the 99 euro super sticker from Olio over on YouTube. Thank you very much for supporting the show. And wherever you are, I guess good evening to you if you're over in Europe.
Yeah, so, good afternoon for sure. Yeah,
good afternoon.
Yeah, and you're talking about, the positional battles. And like you said, it's nice, negotiating from a position of strength. We've talked about this a lot. If there's one question, unfortunately, it's on the roster. The biggest question is at the most important position, which is at the quarterback spot. But it's from there on, it's just more about improving. With the free agents coming in, especially you look at that defensive backfield, the free agency and the draft of what's coming into the defensive backfield is going to make for a lot of good depth and a lot of good position battles throughout the season. And hopefully, everybody stays healthy and the position battles remain battles all season and don't just elevate somebody because of injury, which also leads us to wide receiver. We got someone coming back from injury. So that will, that's going to make the positions. And as we've talked about, when your number one goes down, it elevates everybody else. So when he comes back, it's going to make everybody else, every other position stronger.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited about this defensive backfield. I've definitely been a proponent of just depth in the defensive backfield. Some of the best defenses over the past few years have really attacked that depth of the defensive backfield. A lot of times defenses year to year can fluctuate a lot, just their strength. But it seems like the teams that have a little bit of staying power when it comes to having good defenses have great depth in the secondary. And the team that comes to mind for me is the Baltimore Ravens. So let's get right into that. I already see some questions in here coming in from Miguel coming in here. Do you think Patrick Surtain II is going to beat out Ronald Darby in training camp? So Scott, I'll kick this off to you because you should know at least a little bit about both these guys. The Broncos made Darby a pretty highly paid cornerback, probably the second or third highest paid cornerback in this free agency cycle. I think it was Vic Fangio said he was their number one cornerback topic. Those comments were made before Kyle Fuller became available. And the Broncos are excited to see what he can do in this scheme. Darby's had a lot of injuries, but he's an athlete. He can play inside, outside in the scheme, in my opinion. And I think he's only 27, 28 years old. So some good football left.
Well, my opinion, in training camp might be early. But that doesn't mean you can't get them both on the field right away. So, I don't know that they're necessarily competing for a spot. Where you're just going to talk about moving them around and having three corners, a nickelback, a dime package that you can have them on the field at the same time. But I think, coaches believe a lot in the trust, and as big of a sponge as Surtain might be, I think you were going to want to go with a veteran early. So he may end up being one of those top two corners early on. So I'd say in training camp might be a little early, but you never know. I mean, this is a guy you took number 9 overall. And frankly, it was the guy I said when we were talking about team needs and where we're going to fit. My very first show, I said Patrick Surtain is the pick for the Broncos. So I'm a big fan, obviously, but I was a big fan of Darby coming out too. A little bit different type of players. Darby's a little more, you think of him as being a little more fluid, a little more loose in the hips, and maybe a shade better in coverage. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's a little better in coverage right now, where you're certainly trusting what he can do week 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And stop everyone, hold their horses. Pobby coming in here with $100 super chat. Man, got to collect myself for a second. Good morning. Sending you guys Iowa love. Yeah, hashtag Go Hawks. Thank you so much, Pobby. Thanks for the delicious Broncos for breakfast. Well, thank you for the just incredibly generous super chat here. That will help keep the lights on in here, and that helps a heck of a lot. So we appreciate it a lot. And man, don't ever hesitate to reach out, Pobby. We really appreciate you. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, and I like the Beast is saying Pobby off the top rope. going back to our Jimmy Superfly Snuka discussion. So yeah, she just dropped the elbow off the top rope, the splash, however you want to say it. So thank you so much. It's a big help, and it's certainly something we think about all week, even though we're only on twice a week. Is generosity like that? So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We appreciate that. So, collecting myself here. Back to the secondary. I think you will see Darby early on unless injury happens, which with Bryce Callahan and Ronald Darby, that's something you have to talk about, right? Like, given their history and how often they've been dinged up, it's part of the equation. But barring injuries, I think Surtain is probably a little bit more of a rotational player out of the gate, but that's fine. Like we talked about, you need depth in the secondary, and I think Surtain can be a fantastic player that can come in and play big slot matchups, and especially against tight ends. I saw the Broncos just yesterday tweeted that Pro Football Focus has the Broncos as having one of the best 2 linebacker duos in football, and like half the comments were like, "Oh my gosh, well, none of them can stop Darren Waller or Travis Kelce." Here's the group of linebackers standing behind me that can stop Darren Waller and Travis Kelce. Here they are.
And what have we said? What have I said a zillion times about stopping a passing game? Get pressure on the quarterback.
Yes,
Von Miller's back. If Chubb is healthy, that's how you stop. That's how you stop those guys. Give them a half a jam at the line of scrimmage and then go after the quarterback. That's how you stop receivers. They're easy to stop if you sack the quarterback. Doesn't matter who you got out there.
And if you keep them in front of you, a lot of people have a linebacker hard on right now when it comes to I'll just say it
that's because crazy for you. Jeez,
I know, Nick, not me. Post the Super Bowl. Post Super Bowl, Devin White, Levante David, obviously great linebackers, but I don't know how you can watch that Super Bowl and not see the pass rush being the biggest influence in that Super Bowl. Obviously, the Chiefs' offensive line was terrible, but that's a big one. And then also limiting the big play, right? Like if Travis Kelce still had like 12 catches and 130 yards, didn't feel like it because they are limiting the big plays. And if you have forced them to be stoic, slow, going after moving the ball down the field, that can limit them. Travis Kelce, Darren Waller, they're still going to get theirs. But I think somebody like Patrick Surtain specifically can come in and be a matchup piece that can eliminate the tight end position because he athletically, profile-wise, size-wise, he compares a little bit to Derwin James. And Derwin is one of the best tight end stoppers in the entire NFL when healthy.
Yeah, it's 6'2", 215, and he's only going to get bigger and stronger. So,
yes.
And the key there is it's not just the coverage, it's the yards after the catch.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just said, in this day and age, they're going to get theirs. I mean, they're allowed to push off. They're allowed to, you can hardly touch the guys. So I said, who wants to play defense these days? You're not allowed to hit the quarterback, hit the receivers, press coverage. You're not allowed to play defense anymore. So just make sure that you're making your tackles, to your point, keeping them in front of you, eliminate that yard after the catch. Because one of my favorite things is watching, the old I formations and the tight end getting loose in the secondary. It's diabolical, or the fullbacks. The fullbacks going out there, the old Niners or Cowboys dynasties with Johnston and Rathman, when they break that first line of attack and get into the secondary, it was a little masochistic, a little sadistic, but it was fun to watch.
Yeah.
So make sure you're making those tackles, and that's where Surtain is, I think, head and shoulders above a lot of the guys that we were talking about. Who could you take a corner at the number 9 spot? And me, I like guys that can do both like that are physical. And that's where he fits in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got Miguel coming in here with the superstars or the stars over on Facebook as well. And also Gary Leeds, according to John, saying also dropping some some stars as well. Both superstars, Gary and Miguel. And Gary says, thank you, Nick and Scott, for Broncos for breakfast. And Moana coming in here saying, thank you, Gary and Miguel. So thank you guys, both of you, for supporting the show. We appreciate that a lot. Personally, on paper, Scott, I got to ask you said Surtain was your number 1 cornerback. On paper, for me, I'm looking for cornerbacks that have not only good physicality, ball skills, et cetera, but that twitch, that click and close. I'm looking for Jair Alexander's the prototype right now for me. Maybe a little bit small, but I mean, just with how the game is trending, you can get away with a little bit of size as long as you're physical at the catch point, you tackle well, and you're an elite athlete. And I really thought Caleb Farley, on paper, was the best on the field product cornerback in this class. Now the back surgeries, that's part of the equation. That's why he fell to 20. But if Farley was healthy, would you have taken Surtain over Farley still? Because
I would have, because I like a good old fashioned Tampa too. So I like a press and release. So I want my safeties to be out there that are cleaning up stuff behind the line. I want, you mentioned the phrase, keep them in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
I want my corners to be able to jam and cover it. But for me, a jam and release and cover within 10, 15 yards. But when you got a guy like Surtain, he can still, the difference between him and coverage with a guy like Farley, to me, isn't that big.
Mm-hmm.
But what's in front of you, I thought was that would tip the scales for me.
Yeah.
Of play, the play in front of you. So like I said, I like a good old fashioned, when we talk about schemes, I like my safeties to be really good in coverage. I don't necessarily need to beat them to be in the box safeties. That's what linebackers are for. I like a good old fashioned Tampa 2 in the press and release. So that's why I like Surtain the best.
For sure. Yeah. I was a big Farley fan. Back surgery dropped him. I know the Broncos had I guess I have a question for you. So the Broncos obviously got Surtain at 9. Great pick. Excited about that. He's going to be a really good player for a long time. No qualms about that. But the Broncos were offered that same deal that the Giants ended up taking, where they traded back. They got a 1 and a 3 this year, I believe, and a first-round pick in 2022. Let's say the Broncos trade back. They get to pick 20, or I believe that's the pick the Bears had. And you can sit there and you have all that capital, and you can take Caleb Farley, which, for the way the Broncos cornerback situation is set up right now, not bad. I mean, right? Like we're talking right now, like what are we going to do with these 4 cornerbacks?
Yeah,
if you had Farley who could get a redshirt year.
There you go. That was what I was going to say. You could take a year on Farley at 20. However, Broncos want to go for it this year, right?
Yeah.
So they didn't want to wait a year.
Nope.
So the whole thing we're talking about Aaron Rodgers, what's he worth? Is because the Broncos want to make a run this year. So that's why you don't trade out of that spot. If you feel you're one player away, or right there, then you don't trade back. You take the player that's going to help you the most, best player available that fits a need, and that's why that made a lot of sense.
Yep. Yeah, that's want to say, and I would like that deal a lot, but that is a great point, Scott. Thank you, John. I think the big thing here also is I wasn't the biggest Surtain fit for the Broncos out of the gate, because of the Broncos played the second least amount of press coverage in the NFL last year from the boundary, and I'm not sure that Surtain has the best twitch when it comes to playing off coverage. Now he's fine there. It's not like with how much they play off coverage. It's not elite now.
So I bet you see a little more press now.
Yes, and that was the point. Also, you will see more press now.
Is that the chicken? Is that the chicken or the egg? I bet when you've got a 215-pound guy who's strong as a safety that can cover, I bet you see a little more press now.
Yep, and I think that's a great point. And also Fangio, a lot of people, he's the old ball coach. He's one of the most innovative defensive minds in football, and people get upset about Pat Shurmur not adjusting his scheme to the players. That's never been an issue for Fangio. He sees what he has, and he puts them in the best situation to succeed. And he changes defensive schemes week to week, even for points of emphasis or emphasize, whatever you want to call it. But I think you will see more press, and you did see that with the 2018 Bears, where Kyle Fuller, a lot of off coverage, but he had Prince Amukamara on the other side, a lot of press coverage. So you'd see that. And really the light bulb came on for me with Patrick Surtain about, I think it was midway through day 2 in the draft, where I was just kind of clicking through things, seeing where the profile lined up, and becoming full circle. It's how much his athletic profile compares to Derwin James, his usage as a star position, which is that kind of hybrid safety, cornerback, linebacker that a lot of college teams use his freshman year, and how the Broncos need somebody to help slow down Kelsey and Waller. But I think people have the wrong mindset. It doesn't have to be a linebacker. If you can get a cornerback out there that can do that same stuff, that's even better to me, because it's a cornerback trending league right now, right? There's less linebackers on the field than ever before, more defensive backs. So if Surtain can be part of the solution to slow down Waller and Kelsey, you not only helped yourself in 2021, but you helped yourself for the next 10 years.
Yeah, and you're certainly, if you've got an excess of defensive line or corner, you're in pretty good shape, on defense. And we talk about the linebackers. Linebackers can help make up for some deficiencies, but this team on defense is it's stacked for several positions, and that's what's going to make it so much fun. But going back to I love the draft, and I love trading down, but going back to your original point, I think going from 9 to 20 is too much. If you were able to go 9 to 11 and still get maybe you get J.C. Horn in a pick like that. But I would. That's why I wouldn't. That's why I don't think they took that pick.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense for me, and I think that's a good point. So, Scott, Let's move on now. I think the next one that we should talk about here is wide receiver one, and that one's a kind of a crazy one for me. But man, I think that this is going to be a really interesting camp battle this year for wide receiver one. On paper, you would think that Cortland Sutton would be the number one guy. I think he fits the best with the Broncos. What they have right now as far as quarterback play, instead of a timing quarterback, at least with Drew Lock, you have more of a general accuracy guy who likes to throw the ball down the field. Cortland Sutton's one of the best deep threats in the game. You don't have to be a speedster to be a deep threat. It's just because he's so athletic and play above the rim and physical down the field. I mean, if you isolate him against a cornerback, Cortland Sutton's going to out-physical them at the catch point. So I would lean Cortland Sutton, but Jerry Jeudy entering year 2, 15th overall pick. I mean, with the route running, I would expect the drops to clean up as well. I think there is an interesting camp battle, at least that could happen here. And a lot of it does depend on stuff that we don't know yet with Cortland Sutton's health, how far he's come from where we sit. But I guess we're fixing to find out.
Well, and it's a good problem to have. And how much difference really is there between wide receiver one and wide receiver two? They're both on the field. And if they get open, they're going to be targeted. So, but the whole point of this is having that battle. It just, I used the baseball analogy before. If you lose a closer, it elevates everybody up one spot. Now your 7th inning guy becomes a setup guy. Your 8th inning guy becomes a closer, and it weakens every one of those spots. So when you lose your number one receiver, 3 positions just got weaker. Mm-hmm. So you're bringing those guys back in, and hopefully if Sutton can become 95% of what he was, Jeudy should take a step up. He should only get better. Now your wide receiving core just got a lot better across every single position.
Yeah. That's certainly true. So I would lean Sutton, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if it was Jeudy. I mean, with how much the Broncos peppered Jeudy with targets last year, granted had the lowest rate of catchable targets in the NFL last year. Part of that is because Sutton going down, just the offense in general trying to come together. So that's something to watch as well. But that's a big one. So Scott's going to step out here for a second. It's going to be me. But I want to talk a little bit about wide receiver 3 as well. And that is one that, on paper, it does seem like it's going to be Tim Patrick, and it should be. But I think we shouldn't sleep about KJ Hamler. He is probably the most singular electric piece on this offense right now when it comes to not only short area quickness, but explosiveness down the field as well. Broncos used a 2nd-round pick on him. Obviously, he was dealing with the hamstrings last season, so that can be an issue. That was an issue in the combine as well. He didn't run at the NFL combine, and he had hamstring issues even leading to or throughout the season. So hopefully KJ Hamler is going to be a guy that we can get back in here. And while it should be Tim Patrick on paper as the wide receiver 3, Tim Patrick, hopefully wide receiver 3, and answering some questions in here, who's the Denver Broncos' best blocking wide receiver. Sutton gets really after it. I would probably lean Tim Patrick. Also, Deshaun Hamilton. He tore his ACL, but Deshaun Hamilton was a fantastic blocker as well. I want to give him a shout out on that one. But for wide receiver 3, Tim Patrick should be the guy this year, but given how the contracts are set up for this team, I think the Broncos would love if KJ Hamler could take a big step up and compete for that wide receiver 3 spot, just because Tim Patrick's on the last year's deal, Cortland Sutton's on the last year's deal. You're probably not going to sign both ex-wide receivers to come back, and you want KJ Hamler to kind of step in and be that 3rd wide receiver. That 3rd wide receiver is a starter in today's NFL. Also, it's kind of like that nickel cornerback. Wide receiver 3 is as much of a starter as your 3rd cornerback.
Yeah, for sure. That's why we talk about the teams being in nickel and dime constantly. That's because they're facing 3 and 4 wide receivers all the time. So it makes a lot of sense. That's why I was like, the battle at 1 or 2, does it matter? They're going to be on the field. They're basically starters.
But I think it does matter a little bit for a quarter, because it's wide receiver is probably the most dependent position in football. Maybe actually running back is, because the yards blocked is the biggest correlation to how successful a running back is. But wide receiver would be the 2nd one. And for wide receiver 1 or 2, for sure, they're both going to be on the field. But which guy is the one that's being emphasized? Who's getting the football? I think it's not who's getting on the field. It's who's getting the ball.
Well, and that doesn't matter. Again, so that's not necessarily a position as opposed to a preference from your quarterback.
Yeah, that's true.
Or how the defense decides to game plan.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to double team both guys. And you mentioned Sutton as a deep threat. I've said it before. I have a bias towards big receivers because they're always open. You can throw them open. In getting him back there with his size, and he should be theoretically, he should be the best blocker. Seth Williams should be a terrific blocker. He's a unit. So, when the problem is you don't want it to come in. It's like, oh, there's Seth Williams, running play. Here comes the fourth wide receiver who's as big as a house. So again, a lot of these battles, and especially at wide receiver, and I think EJ's saying this right now on YouTube is stay healthy. Get and stay healthy, and the receiver position is going to be a lot of fun. You're talking about who's going to be playing well instead of who do we patch up and throw out there. It gives you a lot of good options.
Yeah, and I think just for how the wide receiver position sets up out of the gate, CC with a good comment here, and I agree with you on this one. You'll see Sutton probably be the primary X with Patrick as the Z, but I think you can see a little bit of rotation back and forth between those guys. It's like, which one do you want to beat press and be on the line of scrimmage? And then you'll see Judy more in the slot, giving Judy a little bit more room to use that twitch to go either direction. I think Judy, for him to maximize being the 15th overall spot in the draft, he does need to work eventually as a boundary receiver. Probably, I think. Maybe the game's changed enough where even that slot receiver, if they can do a bunch of different stuff, it doesn't matter if he's a slot versus a boundary guy. But we haven't seen that market deficiency kind of correct itself for nickel cornerbacks versus boundary cornerbacks. So I think that's probably still true for wide receivers as well. Boundary guys are going to be more valuable than slot guys, at least for a little bit longer. But that's probably how it's going to set up out of the gate with you'll see Judy in the slot in 11 personnel, Patrick and Sutton outside in 12 personnel, 21 personnel. Will be interesting. I guess it really depends if it's a pure running play. If you're a goal line, something you really want some size, Patrick and Sutton out there. I mean, good luck. Both of those guys like 6'4", 215 pounds. That's some serious meat on the boundary, and you can really do some stuff throwing it up, blocking, et cetera, et cetera. But it will be interesting. I just think, and we had Charlie coming in here saying KJ Hamler had a worse drop percentage than Judy. KJ Hamler has drop issues, there's no doubt. But if he drops some, that's okay with me. If as long as he's also creating 40+ yard catch receptions that can do some stuff down the field. Explosive plays. Got to create explosive plays in today's NFL. That can, with how hard it is to score in the red zone, with how good red zone defenses are, et cetera, et cetera. If you can create explosive plays, you're going to do well. So we got Michael coming back in here with the stars over on Facebook. Guys, if you are joining us on Facebook today, you don't have to leave stars like Michael, although heck, man, love you for it. Appreciate you. And good morning, says Michael. But also, guys, click the thumbs up, click the heart react, click the laugh react, the caribou emoji, the sad emoji, whatever you want to do. That's we appreciate it a lot. We got a lot of people in here, so we appreciate that. And Michael, thank you very much for the stars. We love that. So do you have any? Obviously, you had to step out for a second, and you didn't watch the Broncos as much last year as I did, as a masochist to an extent. But KJ Hamler, thoughts on him coming out at Penn State? One of the youngest players in the draft last year. Obviously twitched up a little bit small, but super dynamic with the ball in his hands. A fun player. If he can clean up those drops and stay healthy, he's probably the most dynamic player on the offense. Maybe. I feel like Judy and Sutton are also dynamic, just differently. Just the most twitched up electric player on the offense.
Well, he brings something a little different, doesn't he? At 5'9", 180, you're talking the perfect guy in the slot, and you can take smaller receivers and push them out wide too. The slants and out routes still work. So you can definitely do that. So played 13 games last year with 30 catches, almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that's not bad for a first year. So again, we can't. I've said it a zillion times because it means a big deal to me. It's Cortland Sutton coming back. Just elevates everybody. It just changes everything if he comes back. A true number one receiver. If he can come back and be that guy again, it's just going to be. It's going to make everybody better. So I'm looking forward to seeing him come back. Because Hamler, he brings something different. He brings. We're talking about big receivers. I see a lot of people talking about Noah Fant as well, big receiver. Sutton, big receiver. Judy's not a big receiver, but he's not little either. So Hamler definitely brings us something a little bit different to the offense, and he'll find a role for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it in the draft, right? Like there is a premium on speed and explosive players. I mean, when Anthony Schwartz, who at your alma mater didn't do much besides like end arounds and bubble screens, but runs a 4.25, right? Like when that guy goes and
He's a different kind of speed.
Yes,
He's
that's
not
true.
just a 4.2, 4.3, whatever, in
Yeah.
pads. He's also like, a 9,900 meter. He's a different kind of speed.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always a premium on speed in the league because that's when you're having more space out there and trying to. It's harder than it's ever been to score in the red zone. You need guys who can. You need 3-point shooters, right? Like you need guys who can score from distance, and that's what speed can bring you. That's what KJ Hamler can bring you. Speaking of scoring from distance, also you're talking about Sutton changing the dynamic. You're talking about the wide receivers. I want to hear what you think about what it does for Fant, and then I want to transition to the interior offensive line. But Reese coming in here over on Facebook, Reese, we appreciate you. Could be a fun year at wide receiver, but I still think Fant will dominate this year. Fant's speed, combined with Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler running in the slot, are going to be tough to stop. So Noah Fant, I think, man, he has a chance to really break out this year. And looking at the Broncos tight end room, not great known depth. Obviously, there's some hope on Alberto Quabinon, but this is going to be the Noah Fant show for the tight end position.
So we're talking about, Noah Fant, 93 targets, 62 catches. He should be open a lot more. Less contested catches. If you've got running 3 wide receivers and Fant in a single back, how do you take away the middle of the field for Noah Fant when you got Sutton back, you got Jeudy out there, you got Hamler in the slot, you've even got guys who can catch the ball out of the backfield in Williams and Gordon. So how do you take away Fant? And we talk about matchup nightmares. That's what's going to make him so tough. So, I expect even if his targets don't go up, I think his receptions and his yards will increase because he should have more space. He should absolutely have more space in this offense this year.
Yeah, no, and I think Fant has got a chance to really just dominate this season. He had a personal tragedy where his mother passed away. So thinking about him this offseason in general, but also looking at him, 3rd-year tight end, I think 23 years old this year. This is typically when you start to see a tight end who's going to be a star really blossom. And looking at his body, even he's filled out. He came in, he was a good athlete, but he was only 21 years old, drafted. And I was like, he's an F tight end.
Tight end's a bitch of a position because, you have to do all the blocking, but then you still have to run sprints with the receivers. So it's still a grown man's position. And we've talked a bunch about how that's so much different in the trenches than it is at the skill positions. Running backs are born, 21-year-old running back. He might be as good as he's ever going to get at 24 years old. Or get, and start going down. Whereas a tight end, he can play till he's 35, 36 years old because that's more of it's still a skill position, but it's also a line position. So what he can do should only improve as he gets older. So he's just scratching the surface. Prime of a tight end is going to be 28 to 32 years old, not 21 to 25 like some of these other skill positions.
Yep, no, 100%. And I want to get to this comment here from EJ saying Shermer needs to use his tight ends more often this year. And while I don't necessarily disagree with you, there's narratives out there. And then you want to look at the data to see how those narratives match up with what's actually going on out there. And I wanted to share this blip right here. Once I get to it, my producer's working on it. There we go. All right. So we're talking tight ends and targets per game for the tight end position last year. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's the Broncos at number 4 overall at 9.2 targets per game to the tight end position. The only teams above them have 3 of the best 4 tight ends in football. The Raiders, 10.6. Obviously, Darren Waller. The Eagles, 10.6. They have not only Zach Ertz, but they also have Dallas Goedert, who's one of the best emerging tight ends in the league. Kansas City with 10.1. And then the Broncos at 9.2. So obviously, looks like there's a decent difference there, and a bunch of teams kind of jumbled in there with from about 9.2 all the way to 8. But still, this narrative that the Broncos do not target the tight end doesn't line up statistically. So I think an important thing to note there, and I'm really excited for Fant this year. I think that he has a chance to explode. It's another position that's completely dependent on the quarterback. Drew Lock needs to obviously take steps forward to not be a low-ranked quarterback, even if he's average, though. I think Noah Fant can explode, and I think he's going to get paid, too. That's one of the guys, Broncos, they have cash right now, whatever. There's not many great tight ends. Noah Fant's skill set, how he's improving, his athleticism, not as plug-and-play ready, I would say, as TJ Hawkinson as a blocker and kind of the contested catch stuff. But the speed that he brings in the middle of the field, the size, and now with how big he is, honestly, and he improved so much as a blocker last year. Not enough credit for how much he improved as a blocker. Coming in, I was like, Noah Fant probably going to be best as an F tight end because of the athleticism. With how he blocked last year, his frame continuing to fill out, I think he could easily be a Y, and that's pretty shocking for me. And you talked earlier about putting your fan hat on for Chelsea and taking it off for football. I took my fan hat off for the Broncos, 2016, 2017, maybe 1 year after getting into this a little bit, just kind of trying to be less biased. The fan hat is on for the Hawkeyes, and I thought I was maybe a little bit too high on Fant. I think maybe I was too low in hindsight. I think he's going to bust out this year. He is going to be, I think he's going to, as long as a quarterback can be at least okay, Fant has a chance to be pretty damn special.
Yeah, well, he's not far off. I mean,
yeah,
he's at 62 catches. Where would that put him last year? 7th or 8th.
Yeah,
probably in the league. You have to figure that you got to add at least one more team to that top 7 or 8 list in the Atlanta Falcons this year, because their targets to the tight end should go up a lot after drafting Kyle Pitts. But again, with 93 targets for Noah Fant and 62 catches, he could be targeted the same and still add another 15, 20 catches this year. So, maybe not quite that many, but it should be a lot easier catches for him. He should find a lot more space, a lot more yards after the catch. So, I think it's a good call. He should have a breakout season, and the Denver Broncos passing game should improve a lot, if all things considered. Now you get, you add a different quarterback to that equation, and all of a sudden these guys, add 50% to all of them.
They're all dependent positions. That's the thing that makes it the toughest, because you can have great players in isolation, but if they're in the wrong situation with the wrong quarterback play or the wrong offensive scheme, they're going to look limited. I think one that I will never forget, I was pretty young at the time, so I didn't really have the full nuance and appreciation of football that I do today. Still, I mean, it's kind of the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Like I feel like I do know more today, but I also am self-aware enough to know that I know so little compared to being ignorant in middle school. But Randy Moss is one that comes to mind. He looked washed with the Oakland Raiders, Kerry Collins throwing him the football. Now, part of it was motivation and the situation, et cetera, et cetera. I get that. But then he goes to New England and just dominates for 2 to 3 years. So wide receivers, as good as they are, it's a dependent position. And if the scheme is not fitting for them, if the quarterback's not getting in the football, if it's the wrong fit, they're going to look limited.
Well, and they're human beings too. That's the part we always forget. We play all these video games and we just think we're plugging in stats. If they're not happy, they're not going to play. It's just the way it's going to be. So, there's such a fine difference between, talent on these guys. If you've made the NFL, you're elite. You're an elite player. So what's the difference between the levels of elite? It could be the fact that, man, I just don't want to be here, and I'm at 90% instead of 100%. The margins are so slim between elite and great that if he's not happy, we've seen a lot of guys go places and flop and then go to a contender, and all of a sudden they're reborn. So the franchise matters for sure.
Yep. And Django coming in here. Good evening, guys. No drops, hopefully, this year. Thank you for the comment, Django, over on YouTube. Guys, if you're joining us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and share. We would appreciate that a lot. And I want to get to a transition here from EJ. Another camp position battle that is worth monitoring. Do you guys think Quinn Miners wins the starting center position over Lloyd Cushenberry III? What a regal name, man. He's definitely out there for the all names team. And this is a good question.
Can we just call him Lord? He sounds more like Lord Cushenberry to me, from the North Highlands.
Yeah. No, that's God. What a good, what a great name. This is a good question, EJ, and I think this points to the Broncos scheme, what they kind of want to do. The Broncos last year, I think, were in the top. This is just quoting off the top of my head, but I think they're in the top 5 in gap-centric blocking schemes for the run game, and they struggled on the interior offensive line to execute that. Now, part of that was Reisner. He played with an injury last year, had a little bit of a sophomore slump. Is he better in a wide zone scheme versus a more gap-centric scheme outside of the traps and the pulls? Maybe. Well, that remains to be seen. We'll find out more this season when it comes to that. But the center position, no way around it. The 2 positions on this team that struggled the most last year for guys who should be playing again this season were the center position and the quarterback position. And Lloyd Cushenberry gets competition this year. Obviously, first year in the league, centers sometimes take a little bit of time. Broncos' last 2 starting centers, not only did they not play their rookie season, they weren't even on the 53-man roster their rookie season. Matt Paradis and Connor McGovern were practice squad guys their rookie year. So that's a big difference compared to Lloyd Cushenberry starting his rookie year. But I think this is really an interesting camp battle. Quinn Miners versus Lloyd Cushenberry. If the Broncos want to run more gap, Miners on paper and on film looks like the better scheme guy. But going from Division III Whitewater to the NFL, especially when he was a guard at Whitewater as well, that's a heck of an ask. I'm not sure if 2021 is the year.
Yeah, it might be too early. So going back to the original question we had about Surtain winning out in camp, maybe not in camp. Maybe not in camp, but what Miners does is it elevates the position again. And frankly, he could play guard too. What you're saying. He lined up at the Senior Bowl. He lined up at center, guard, and tackle. So he's got the athleticism, despite that. The belly's got to breathe, and he looks out there like a beer league softball. A beer league softball player at times. He's athletic as hell, and he's super strong. So. Is he going to win that battle? I don't know. I honestly don't know how good Cushenberry is. I know that Miners can play. I know he can flat out play. So if there's a drop off there, you've got somebody ready to step in, and that's a good position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got Shoot Your Shot Sports coming in here over on Twitch saying, "What's up, guys? What's up to you? Shoot your shot." Appreciate you. And we got Andrin coming in here over on YouTube. Appreciate you, Andrin, for the comments and just contributing to the comment section here. And everybody who's doing that today over on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, etc., Periscope, etc. Poor center play can also contribute to poor quarterback play. I mean, round and round we go, right? Like they feed into each other.
If you look at who gets paid the most, I think center might be the most underrated position in football. I really do, because they're not just. It's not just that it's the first line of attack towards the quarterback, straight line right through the center. They're making all the calls. I guarantee you every center in the league has a college degree. I guarantee you every single one of them does. So they're the ones that are making all the line adjustment calls and the blocking scheme adjustment calls on the fly. So how important is that position? And they get paid third best across the offensive line. So it's a huge position. If you've got it, kind of like we talk about running backs being interchangeable, but when you've got a good one, it makes a huge difference. So, I agree with you. It makes a big difference, and it contributes to everything. Not just quarterback play, because it's the entire offensive line.
Yeah, and apparently last year Cushenberry was also having to call out some alignment stuff, calling out the mic when Drew Lock was struggling with it. From the quarterback position. So sometimes you can pan off some of that, those responsibilities to the cornerback or the center, depending on who's better. I mean, obviously when Peyton Manning was out there, he was taking some responsibility off of the shoulders of Matt Paradis because it's goddamn Peyton Manning. But typically you want your quarterback to be the guy who's making those calls, and Drew Lock was struggling with it, so they put more intellectually on Cushenberry's plate. So, it's tough to think about there. So hopefully, a second year in the scheme for Locke, he should be better there. And it sounds like he fully understands that he struggled last year and he's going to have to step up to earn his spot, unlike going up against Jeff Driscoll and Brett Rippon last year. So that should lead to good things for the Broncos and everybody on the team. So I'm excited about that. But the last position here I wanted to get to before we get out of here pretty soon is where's my comment section here? Right receiver. Okay, I guess two more. One more. Let's go on the offensive line. Right tackle. I'm not sure the Broncos are going to do the right tackle. I know that as good as Peyton has been this season with George Payton, not Peyton Manning, too many Peytons in here. With the as good as he has been with patience this offseason, I wish he would have been a little bit more patient with the right tackle position, because they brought in Bobby Massey. That's great. Cam Fleming, et cetera, et cetera. They have Calvin Anderson, who they've been kind of grooming the past few years to be a swing guy. Morgan Moses is on the market right now, and he probably would have been a better option than any of those guys. Maybe he had to pay a little bit more, but man, I would have loved Moses on this team, and he would have been the best right tackle this team had since maybe Orlando Franklin. I think people underrate a little bit how good Jared Veldheer was his one season here when he was healthy. But man, I would love Morgan Moses on this team, even though they've already paid Massey, Fleming, and have Anderson.
So that's my question on here, Nick. Is it done? We're talking about all these high profile free agents, not free agents, but players that could be free agents based after the June 1st deadline. Mm-hmm. Could another right tackle, are we done here? Is this it? Or we're talking $35 million in cap space.
Yeah.
It's kind of like taking timeouts to halftime. That's not going to do you a whole lot of good for the future. So if somebody presents themselves, you'd think that Denver might go after somebody else. Don't you think?
I would be remiss if they didn't at least bring in Moses for a visit and have Munchak's eyes on him and be like, okay, is this better or worse? Now that 35 million they have this year, there's a little bit of nuance to that 35 million because next year you have a bunch of contracts that explode as far as numbers wise. So that carryover is going to help you a little bit.
It does carry over, but again, you're still talking about making a run this year.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, Peyton's going to have to look at long term as well, and you want to have some flexibility. But you have 2 contracts that are going to explode next year. They're lower this year, but then in 2022 they get very big in their cap hits, and that's Justin Simmons and Garrett Bowles. Both have relatively small numbers this year. They get quite big next year. So that rollover, you can just look at the rollover as paying early. You're paying early on your bills if you have that rollover, if you're starting to allocate some of that, because those are big cap hits next year. And then you also have some big impending contracts as well. And the 2 names to keep an eye out for here are Cortland Sutton and Bradley Chubb. Both those guys are about to get paid. And if you want to save maybe $2 or $3 million, not wait until free agency, pay them a little bit beforehand. You want that cash in your back pocket now. So definitely stuff to think about. I still would bring in Moses at least for a look because this is a team. We need no excuses for the quarterback this year. None. We need to have a clean evaluation. That's what we tried to do last year, and things happened that there were excuses. We want none this year. I think we all need to be on the same page. And
frankly, overpay on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
If you're talking about, if you're worried about next year, overpay on a 1-year deal. Say, come in here. What's your offer? We're going to beat it by 50%, and you're going to come in here. You're going to go on a Super Bowl run with us.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty good pitch, right?
Yep, that is a good pitch. I want to hear your pitch here, Scott. Malcolm Brown coming in up in Alaska. Malcolm always joining us in the comment section and always dropping super chats as well. Thank you very much, Malcolm, for being such a ardent supporter and a consistent member in the community. We see you. We appreciate you a heck of a lot. He asks, who is the best and worst head coach in the NFL currently? I'm racking my brain for the best head coach. The worst head coach, I'm going to go with Cliff Kingsbury, a guy who I don't know how he failed up the way he did. He had to be the head coach of a team that had Patrick Mahomes and I think had a losing record at Texas Tech, gets fired, is the offensive coordinator for like a week at USC because the air raid is in vogue, and then is all of a sudden an NFL head coach. Like, what the heck is going on here? They have talent on that team as well. He's terrible. I don't know what he's going to be. He's going to be fired this year. Best head coach.
I think for the best, if I've got one season, frankly, I'm a huge fan of Mike Tomlin. Huge fan.
Yeah.
What they've done at Pittsburgh for a long time, and you might even be able to go Harbaugh in there too. He's done a good job. But if I'm starting a franchise, and this is career mode, I might go Sean McVay. I might bring him. I might bring him in. Does that make him the best? No, but we're looking, young, up and coming. But that's not nearly as important in the NFL because you can coach till you're 70. But Sean McVay has done really good in a short period of time. But I'm a huge Mike Tomlin fan. If I'm sitting here at Atlanta and I got an opening and he's available, I'd probably go with Mike Tomlin.
That's a great pick. Mike Tomlin's way up there. I do want to give it. Obviously, Bill Belichick is an all-time great. He was fortunate to have.
That one seemed too easy. Honestly, that seemed too easy. It's like, okay,
we had to at least say it. We had to at least say it. Also, I wanted to also at least say Andy Reid. Because talk about managing personalities and the schemes as well. And an issue when you have defensive-minded head coaches is your offensive coordinators leave, and then you have a lot of instability there. But when you have a very good offensive-minded head coach, at least you have the stability and scheme on offense. Yeah. And Andy Reid is one. Clock management is still an issue for him. But it is what it is. I really think I was going to say John Harbaugh, and I want to also give a shout-out to Bruce Arians. I would die for Bruce Arians. I love him. I know you're an Atlanta fan, so you probably don't like him as much, but like him talking, I think he does a great job managing all the different personalities. He's funny. He has some levity, and he's like talking about his coaches saying like, if you miss a single school event, sports game of one of your kids, I will fire you. He's on off the field. I love Bruce Arians.
I think Pete Carroll has probably exceeded expectations from when he was hired.
Yes,
has done a good job. Sean Payton has been great with New Orleans. No, they're in a golden era for sure.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good. New Orleans Atlanta is one of the best rivalries that nobody talks about because both teams are bottom 5 franchises in NFL history. Mm-hmm. But New Orleans has been an elite franchise since Peyton's been there. So that a lot of credit goes to Sean Payton as well.
Yeah, and probably just one last shout out, another coach that I absolutely love, Sean McDermott. Sean McDermott, what he's done for the Bills there, him and Billy Beane together, probably one of the best head coach GM combos, building a sustainable culture there in Buffalo, a team that it's hard to bring in free agents, a team that is historically underperformers, and really righted that ship correctly. They feel like they have a very strong base, as we're like, they don't feel fluky at all. They are a team that is built to last, and McDermott's a huge part of that. So I'm a big fan of Sean McDermott as well. So thank you for the question there, Malcolm. We appreciate that a lot. And offseason, that's a great offseason comment. We got a couple comments in here saying, smash that like button, everyone. And a Facebook user coming in here saying, my name is Clayton. How do you show my name, guys? Excellent question. Sometimes the algorithm is weird. Maybe it's some of your permissions over on Facebook that's not allowing it to come through here. But thank you for letting us know your name, Clayton. And we appreciate you. I think it's probably your own Facebook settings, though. So just wanted to clarify that one. So a couple
make
more.
Sure you're logged in. Sometimes you could be logged out but still see it. By following a link. I'm not sure. Yes. And you can always come over on YouTube too. So lots of different ways to find us. Appreciate you being here. Scott, who is the worst coach is what Malcolm Brown says. Who is the worst coach? I don't know. The one that always sprung to mind right away was Garrett, with the Dallas Cowboys. He's okay, but with the resources that the Cowboys have, they should have been doing better. Dan Quinn wasn't great with the Atlanta Falcons. It takes some doing to blow the leads that he's blown in over and over and over again, to have the resources at his disposal and to start 2 consecutive seasons 0-7, and hiring, taking the number 1 offense in the league and hiring a guy who'd never been an offensive coordinator in the NFL before to take over that offense. That is a galactically stupid move. But I don't know. It's easy for me to the guys that aren't very good. They don't last long enough for me to even bother remembering their names. When you get my age, if you don't know somebody at least 2 years, you just don't even put them in your long-term memory.
Absolutely. And some names for the worst that also Cliff Kingsbury is my number 1. And maybe a part of that is I am a big Kyler Murray fan. And I feel like Kyler Murray has been stunted with Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, you're running constant curl routes with DeAndre Hopkins on the left side. Like, come on, man. Like, this isn't high school football. You can do better than that, especially for being an offensive genius. Shout out here also, Duke. Hello, Duke. How you doing, buddy? Haven't seen you in a while. I'm glad you guys didn't mention Chucky as the best head coach. John Gruden, good offensive mind, good schemer. John Gruden, the general manager, always gets in the way of John Gruden, the coach. Just that's part of it.
And we've taught, that was one of my early lessons, watching Dan Reeves, one of the first guys, Parcells did that, always demanding total control of it. Dan Reeves did it to his dismay at 3 different places. Dan Reeves is a hell of a football coach. Yep. And he worked his way out of 3 different jobs by demanding to be in charge of personnel, and the team was worse off for it at all 3 places.
Yep. And one more I wanted to give out for a worst head coach, Mike McCarthy, right? Like, he accomplishing so little during Aaron Rodgers' career there, and how absolutely inept that Cowboys team looked under him. And just like the issues with him personality-wise with a few players as well. That's part of the game for being a head coach, right? Like, you have to be able to juggle different personalities and maximize guys. That's something that made Wade Phillips so great in Denver as well. Not always the most dynamic schemer. He was like, I have talent. I let go talent, go play. Make it simple, stupid. That's great when you have talent. When you don't have talent, that can be a little harder, but great manager personalities. McCarthy's had some issues there.
Yeah, he probably won't last as long as Jason Garrett did in Dallas. And, I couldn't even tell you right now who the coach is at Washington. I give whoever coaches there a pass because of the ownership.
It's Rivera. I mean, he's done a pretty good job.
I like Ron Rivera. Yeah, Ron Rivera is a good coach. But how long is he going to last at Washington? I like Ron Rivera. I was a big fan of what he did with the Panthers.
Yeah, I think he's another one who is it's kind of a John Fox situation where he's a good builder of a team, but I don't know if he has the schematic ability to take you over the top. Now, he's going to raise the heck out of the floor of that team, and if you're in dismay, if you bring him in, he's going to build a good program. But is it enough to take you over the top? Maybe. Troy coming in here saying, go Broncos from Egypt, and the official Broncos fan club of Cairo. Troy, nice. Over in Egypt. I would love to get over to Egypt at some point. I'm a big history nerd. I feel like pretty basic there in that that side of things. But Egypt always fascinated me. I'd love to go out there and see a bunch of that area. So Troy, I'll hit you up maybe one day. Appreciate you over in Egypt. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, I was always a Greek mythology guy, so I did go and go see all the stuff in Greece and in Turkey across the sea. But I have not been to Egypt, so that's a great. Appreciate you checking in.
Where in Greece did you go, Scott? Whereabouts?
I started in Athens, and my God, was I disappointed.
Oh man,
it's just dirty. It was just unpleasant. But then once you get out of it's kind of like New York. Once you get out of Manhattan, New York is awesome.
Yeah.
And that's how Greece felt. You'd get home and you'd have to blow the soot out of your nose from all the air pollution and stuff. But this was 20 years ago. It could have changed immensely since then. But good time. Mykonos is definitely a bucket list place. One of the most beautiful places on earth. So
I think part of it is the not to go. It's the off season. We can have a little bit of off the rail conversations. When I went to Greece, my wife and I went to Greece 5 years ago. Actually, 5 years ago to the date. I think we were pulling into Corfu, which is an island up the Adriatic Sea, kind of in between Greece and Albania. Beautiful. If you guys haven't been to Corfu, amazing. But I think part of it is I think the islands aren't taxed, and a lot of the money goes into the islands. So there's they can't really fund a bunch of public programs in mainland Greece because a lot of the wealth stays in the islands, which we'll all have different opinions about that. But if you're going to Greece, obviously the history there in Athens, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're looking for kind of a lush time, maybe get on a boat, ferry, or if you're lucky enough, a yacht, do some island hopping, the Greek islands. Oh my God, that's not
I call that color impossibly blue. The color of the sea when you're out there. It's nice.
Oh man. The only not disappointment, but it's like if you're looking for the sandy beaches, not your place. It's the rocky beaches. Beautiful landscapes though because of that. Ouzo sucks. Come on, Charlie. I'm not a big black licorice fan, but if you're in Greece, you can enjoy a little bit of ouzo. Gosh, I wanted to get to this comment here actually from this football season here. Charlie's been harping about this for a second now. The 2018 draft was kind of a weird one when it came to wide receivers. I don't think there was maybe only one wide receiver drafted in the first round that year. And then you had a bunch fall to the second round that ended up being great players. A.J. Brown, DJ Metcalf, Terry McLaurin in the third round. Why did those guys? Do you have any opinions about why those guys fell in comparison to other years? I have some theories, I guess. That 2017 draft where 3 wide receivers went in the top 10, none of them have lived up to expectations. I think teams are a little bit afraid from the year before and learning from that. But I mean, they kind of those other teams took big advantage of it. Also with Metcalf specifically. Scheme specific, he's a deep threat, right? Like he turns like a battleship or airline carrier, whatever you want to say. But if you can get him be big and tall, running straight line, God bless, vertical passing game, amazing. Also, Metcalf had back concerns, which dropped him, and he was playing in that Luongo offense at Ole Miss, which is make believe. They're like, oh, what routes do you run? We didn't really run routes. Like we just kind of went out there, and you're supposed to get to this area. Like, are you kidding me? He's now the offensive coordinator for North Carolina. I don't know what's going on there. I absolutely hate watching his scheme.
Well, I think you answered your own question there on why. Plus, there was a lot of players to choose from.
Yeah,
so there's there ends up being the thought of, well, we can get a guy later. We can get a guy later. We can get a guy later. So they all fall. So and then once the run starts, then they all go in like 15 picks.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. That's a good comment there. And thank you. And it's kind of interesting to look back and do all those, what happened here, try to understand it. The last position battle I want to talk about here before we get out of here. And didn't A.J. Brown get hurt? I'm not sure. Just curious. Maybe he was dealing with an issue, but I think it was more so DK Metcalf. Both of those guys, Ole Miss wide receivers, right? A.J. Brown, Dawson Knox, DK Metcalf. What a good time that team had as at the pass catcher positions. And
off the field too, I would assume.
Yeah. Chad Kelly throwing on the ball early on, et cetera. Yeah, crazy stuff. But running back, it does seem obvious on paper that Melvin Gordon will be the starter. But if you're trading up in the second round, the equivalent of a late first round pick to go up and get value-wise, to go up and get Javonte Williams for a running back position, he better damn well be in your plans year one. And I'm curious to see how this shapes up. I think the Broncos are going to have plenty of carries for both of them. They're looking for running backs to smash their head into the wall, especially if the interior offensive line struggles moving guys off the point of attack like they did last year. But running back one, I think, is up for grabs. Melvin Gordon should be the shoe-in. If he's dropping the football, he won't be starting long.
Well, and I think it ends up being a split, a more even split where it's a co-starters almost. Last year, the attempts where it was a 2-to-1 ratio between Melvin Gordon and Philip Lindsay. I think it's going to be a lot closer to 1-to-1.
Yeah.
There were 340 carries between the two of them. Look at that to be like 190 to 150. I think it'll be pretty close. There won't be a 2-to-1 gap. So the battle's on. The battle's on, and I was reading the next part of that is, where do you go on this if you're not going to re-sign Melvin Gordon? I was reading Mile High Huddle, and I don't remember, it may have been Eric that wrote it, talking about how Gordon's not going to be back in 2022. So do you use him more and use him up, or do you hold off, and use the guy that's going to be with you, the rookie, a little bit more? There's two ways to look at that. So, but I think the ratio for carries is going to be a lot closer to 1-to-1 than it was last year.
Yeah, and a lot of it will depend on hot hand, I think. And also, if one of those guys get dinged for the running back position, a guy dinged playing at 85% is a lot different than the healthy, fresh guy at 100%. That could be the difference maker for a few weeks. So it will be a lot of fun to see how that plays out. Either way, feeling pretty good about the running back position this year, not only from a talent perspective, but also a scheme fit perspective as well. Love Philip Lindsay. Watching him run inside zone, ISO, etc., without the fullback leading him last year was frustrating for everybody involved. Won't have that this year. But guys, I think that's about it. We got to get out of here. We want to give a shout out to everybody who came in today. Olio was in the house today. Pobby, the princess of MHH. My God, with the $100 super over on YouTube. Luckily, I have a hat on because I think my hair stood up on end after that one. Gary Leeds, Miguel, Michael, Malcolm Brown, all you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate the heck out of you. Also, everybody joining us today. In the comment section as well. We appreciate the heck out of you. Stephen Barr saying, great show, guys. Go Broncos. Duke in the house again. Duke, hope you're doing well, man. I know that didn't see you there for a bit, but thinking about you, and every once in a while I'm like, oh, I hope Duke's doing pretty well. So we appreciate you. Malcolm coming in also. Want to see the Jets sweep New England. That would be sweet. Maybe a year off from that one yet. Let's see Miami sweep New England first. That would be fun as well. But guys, like I said, that's going to do it for us today. That was Broncos for Breakfast. We will be joining you again this Thursday for another episode at 8 a.m. Mountain Time. And really appreciate all you across the pond people as well. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your European Facebook groups or Egypt fan groups that you actually have a show that's not at 5 a.m., 4 a.m. for you guys. You guys can come in and join, talk some football. It's a lot of fun. We try to keep it light or hearted in here, but also try to keep it. This isn't a fan show, right? We're analysts. We're trying to keep it real in here. So we appreciate you guys a lot. Also, make sure you're following us on Twitter at HuddleUpPod and at Mile High Huddle. If you're joining us on Facebook today, first, Facebook listeners, click the thumbs up. I don't know if you can see them up there. I see 18, which is a great number. Peyton Manning, that's great. I don't know if that's YouTube numbers, but if you're joining us on Facebook today, like, care react, heart react, wow react, et cetera, we'd appreciate that. Also, Facebook guys, join us, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. Can help us a lot. YouTube people, first off, subscribe, like, and share. Not only do that for Mile High Huddle, but also do that for Scott's page, youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy. I am going to drop the link also in the comment section here. You guys can click that. It'll automatically take you to Scott's channel, and you can see what's going on there. Scott, what have you dropped recently? What's the latest?
It's been quiet. It's been quiet right now. I'm starting to get back into doing some more highlight stuff, some evergreen things. I kind of want to get training camp under my belt a little bit before I start hosting, but I want to do some more best overs. Those are fun. But and I enjoy just interacting with the people that are subscribing. I recognize a lot of names in the comments, so appreciate for all of y'all that have subscribed and are interacting on my channel.
Yep. Absolutely. We appreciate it. You guys can follow us on Twitter as well, at Scout Kennedy for Scott and at Nick Kendell MHH for myself. Also want to give Scott one more shout out. Congratulations to him for Chelsea winning it all. I know that as an Atlanta sports fan, you're a tortured soul, but to have your main, the way you talk about it, your main fan team win it all as an underdog as well against Man City, especially with the crud we were getting in the comment section about how Man City was going to smash them. Anything can happen in a single elimination game, and God bless it did. The Blues,
yeah, won. It goes my kids and then Chelsea when it comes to my where my fandom goes. So after that, but when you're tough to score on, it means you got a chance against anybody. But it also, when you have trouble scoring goals, it means you can get beat by anybody. So losing to Leicester and losing to Arsenal on the run in, losing to Aston Villa on the run in, but that's three times in a row, 3 times in 6 weeks that they beat Manchester City, and the last one mattered a lot. So that was a lot of fun.
Yep. Thank you, everybody who's saying thank you for the good show. We appreciate it. Hopefully we'll see you guys again on Thursday. Everyone stay safe. We love y'all. Go Broncos.